0, 1. Let's get started.
Hey, inspirational leaders, welcome back to Elevate Life, where we help high capacity leaders walk through high stakes transition with clarity, courage, and conviction. I'm John Register, and if you've been with us on this journey, you know I believe leadership doesn't just evolve, it elevates. When we're bold enough to amputate what no longer serves us. Now, this week, we're doing something a little bit different. Over this half year, I've asked every guest the same signature question. What did you have to amputate in order to elevate your success? Today, I want to share their answers back to back because together they've created a powerful mosaic of what real leadership transformation looks like. I call each of these moments a leadership lever, not a lesson, not a quote, but a shift, a piece of insight that can be pulled forward in your leadership practice right now. Just so we can consume them better, I am only giving you 8. They are in no particular order. None are better than the others, but this mosaic will build a tapestry of who you might be drawn to in this moment in your leadership career path. The 8 you're going to hear from are Michael Dominguez. He is the president and CEO of Associated Luxury Hotels International. Abby Schlatter, the CEO of Common Font. Aurel Moody, the CEO and co-founder of Talkadot. Zara Northover, Olympian and scholar. Meryl Tingascal, the only Black woman to fly the U-2 aircraft. She is the Dragon Lady. Martin Perlmutter, president and CEO and founder of Speakers Spotlight, the world-renowned Hall of Fame speaker and New York Times best-selling author, Don Yeager. By the way, we are 2024 classmates in the Speakers Hall of Fame. And then Sonia Dumas. Now, there's really no words to describe Sonia. She's of extraordinary brilliance. She is a woman who was snagged out of college to run luxury hotel brands and build them and put them into existence. See how I bookended her with Michael Dominguez? But how she thinks just challenges how you will think about what you think. So let's call her the Make You Think Beyond What You Thought unicorn. So here we go. 8 voices, 8 amputations, and 8 levers of leadership. Here's what we're learning. Why letting go beats powering through. Success is rarely about what we add. It's almost always about what we're willing to subtract. This week, I asked a powerful question to some of the sharpest minds that I know. What did you have to amputate in order to elevate your success? And the answers, they cracked something open in me.
It's amputating your ego. And I think that's the hardest thing for leaders. And what I've seen specifically as I bring leaders in, a younger leader from an experience perspective, not age, versus a very experienced leader, I most of the times find that experienced leader very open to other ideas, not about you, because you're not trying to prove yourself. And I think that's important for people that are young or early in their leadership journey is to understand, how do you cut out your ego? Because we all have it.
Let's start with ego. Because as Michael Dominguez said, we all have it. The challenge isn't getting rid of it. It's knowing when it's running the show. That one line hit me like a hammer. Ego doesn't show up loud in leadership. It whispers in the boardroom. It overplans the calendar. It resists feedback, and it believes asking for help is weakness. But the truth is, as Don Yeager shared, the biggest leap in this success didn't come from being impressive. It came the moment he stopped thinking he was the main character in every room.
I think the thing I had to learn to lose was a little bit of ego. You know, I had I was pretty convinced that the world was better because I was in it for quite some time, and I had to be knocked down a few times to recognize that I wasn't some of the things I had grown to believe about myself.
That got me thinking about my own amputee journey, not just the physical one, but the identity, the level of amputation, and that I had to walk through. After the injury, I kept trying to be strong. I wanted to be admired, not pitied. So I performed resilience instead of living it. I smiled on the sidelines and stuffed the chaos inside, buried it deep inside. But it wasn't until I stood in front of a mirror, you know, legs gone, pride cracked, that I had the guts to say, I didn't know how to move forward. I just didn't know how to move forward. That day wasn't my breakdown, it was my breakthrough. Because vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the birthplace of reinvention. Let's call it what it is. Executives are brilliant at solving problems, but sometimes ego turns leadership into isolation. We're trained to hold it together, to be and own the room, to have all the answers. But here's the cost: teams don't trust people who never admit mistakes. Stakeholders don't invest in leaders who aren't even evolving, and culture can't grow where ego takes up all the oxygen. Can't even breathe. Look at what Abby said.
For me, I think the main thing I've needed to amputate is the desire or the belief that I can control everything. And with that, I would say building a business is messy business.
Building a business is messy. Letting go of control wasn't a flaw in her leadership, it was the foundation of it. Martin Perlmutter left a prestigious law firm and salary for an idea he and his wife barely even understood.
It was a big thing. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but I knew it was the right thing for me. So I guess what I had to sort of amputate the in my life was this path that I was on that was very well sort of established. I'd worked hard. I got a lot of rewards for it, prestige, good salary. My family was happy with me. And all of those things on the outside look really great, but on the inside, I wasn't happy. And so I had to walk away from the security of a job, of a paycheck, and all the sort of accoutrements that go along with that. And so Farah and I, we both actually quit our jobs at the same time. She was working in marketing and PR. And so we went from 2 incomes to 0, basically overnight. And we went from both having really great jobs to starting a speakers bureau, which we weren't even exactly sure what that was.
He walked away from a guaranteed paycheck for a life with purpose. No safety net, just conviction and courage. That kind of subtraction is terrifying, but also essential, because comfort zones don't scale and control isn't clarity. It is a substitute for it. Real clarity, the kind that drives the growth, comes from surrender, not certainty. Let's look at this with the lens of my resilience action model. Reckoning. Acknowledge the part of your leadership that is performative. Ask, where am I leading to protect my identity, not to serve the mission? Revision. Replace control with clarity. Like Sonia Dumas said,
overwhelm is not really about the workload. It's not about the volume of work that's coming at you. It was actually an issue of no clarity about what's the destination? Where are we heading with all of this? And there was also no milestones to be able to say we made it to the next milestone as we move to this destination.
Overwhelm isn't about workload. It's about not seeing the milestones. Define the true destination and then name your next rest stop. And then finally, renewal. Lead from openness, not omniscience. Build a culture where it's safe to say, yeah, I don't know. Because when vulnerability walks in, real trust follows. So here's your mid-year mirror. What belief, what behavior, what badge of ego are you in need of amputating to truly elevate to your next level of leadership? It might not be working harder. It might be about letting go of the very thing that once made you feel in control. And if you're brave enough to look at that honestly, your elevation has already begun. So here's your leadership leverage. That is number 2. It's drawing from Martin Perlmutter, Don Yeager, and some other tissues of my own story of stepping into the unknown. If you want to know all about this and see that, just go to the podcast on John Register Live. So today we're talking about why leaders must leap before they're certain. Control feels safe until it starts smothering the very growth we're after. Sometimes success begins the moment we stop trying to manage the outcome and start trusting the unknown. This episode, I sat down with leaders who had to let go of the map to find the mission. And remember, all of these lessons are baked into John Register Live. Go over there and find and listen to that podcast because they're chock with nuggets. So let's talk about the illusion of control, because that's exactly what it is, an illusion. And yet for high achievers, it becomes our oxygen. Abby said it plainly. I had to amputate the belief that I can control everything, from client wins to product relevance to company survival. She had to get okay with the messiness of it all. And that hit me. How many of us are burning out, not because we're failing, but because we're trying to guarantee that we won't? Control is seductive, but it's also exhausting. I remember the moment I decided to say yes to my first speaking professional gig. I had no stage background, no bureau, no idea how to build a brand from a prosthetic leg and a painful past. But something in me whispered, yeah, just say yes, even if you don't know how to do it yet. In that moment was pure terror, but it was also pure truth, because control wants a plan, but purpose just wants you to say yes. Martin Perlmutter, he shared this same leap. He left a top law firm, prestige, salary, parental approval. He didn't have a backup plan, just a belief that misery was not a life sentence. So he amputated the comfort of being on track to walk into purpose with his wife, Farah. They went from 2 paychecks to none, from dining out to dollar stretching, and still they found joy. Why? Because they weren't trying to control the outcome. They were trusting the direction. Once again, go to John Register Live to go hear this podcast. Here's the leadership trap. The higher you go, the more control you think that you need. Now, we see it every day. Teams being micromanaged, strategies overplanned, visionaries stuck in spreadsheets instead of service. But here's what our guest made us think about so clearly. Control isn't the same as clarity. Control chases certainty. Clarity creates direction. Aurel Moody talked about the fear of disconnecting from your identity as you evolve.
For me, growing up in the projects in Brooklyn, the more and more success, for lack of a better term, that I've experienced, I had to struggle with feeling less and less connected to like the streets like I once was. And it's this extremely weird push and pull where it's like, I want to be the American dream. I want to start from nothing and make something and grow. But then as you start growing and as you start buying houses in the suburbs and playing bocce ball and snowboarding and doing all these things that you never thought you would ever do in your adult life, there is an element of like, oh, am I not hood anymore? Have I forgotten what it's like to be that?
He had to amputate that shame that came with success. As he grew, he worried that he was losing the quote unquote hood, losing his roots. That tug of war created sabotage until he realized that growth didn't mean betrayal. It meant becoming. Great book by Michelle Obama. He didn't control his evolution, he claimed it. Leadership in this era isn't about guarding the castle. It's about building bridges into unknown terrain. And you don't need to know where the bridge ends. You just need to walk far enough to invite others. Here's the resilience action plan. Reckoning. Name the outcome you're gripping too tightly. Is it a project, a relationship, an identity? Ask, what fear is driving my need to control this? And revision. Shift your metric from certainty to alignment. So this decision is aligned with who you are, not just what looks impressive on LinkedIn. And then finally, renewal. Act before the map is complete. Like Martin and Abby, you don't need a full GPS to move. Sometimes the best compass is conviction. So here's your executive prompt for me. Where in your leadership are you managing more than you're moving? What if letting go is your next level strategy? Let the next decision be less about guarantees and more about grounded, gut level trust. The illusion of control will keep you safe, but it will never set you free. This next elevation is drawn from Sonia Dumas, Zara Northover, Merrill Tingesdahl, and Don Yeager. This one ties it all together. The ego we manage, the control we release, and gets to the soul of leadership in this season, the courage to be seen. Here's our title, The Strength and Surrender, Why Vulnerability is the Secret to Sustainable Leadership. Not every amputation is visible. Sometimes the real cut is the one we make when we finally drop the armor. This week, I spoke with leaders who've learned that the key to elevation is exposure. You can find it on my John Register Live account on YouTube. So let's go. Because no matter what industry you lead in, tech, finance, nonprofit, military, there comes a moment when your title can't shield you from your truth. Zara Northover said it best.
One of the things that I started to notice on my journey was that my defense mechanism was finding someone to fix, helping someone, whether they needed my help or not, or asked for my help or not, but it was just always trying to help. And, you know, some people have a vice of drinking, smoking, having sex, whatever, right? But my vice was seeking out people to help all the time. And in what I realized in conversation was that in helping others, I was disregarding my own issues, disregarding the fact that I had things that I needed support or help in. So because I was so focused on, well, I've got to do this for this person, whether they asked me to help or not.
I had to realize my defense mechanism wasn't helping other people, so I didn't have to deal with my own pain. And that hit me really deep because we all have our version of that. For some of us, it's perfectionism. For others, it's performance. For me, it was pushing forward even when my soul said, pause. And here's the truth for you. Leaders don't say out loud enough. You can't serve others well if you're bleeding under the surface. Years ago, I was asked to speak to a room full of executives, full of CEOs. It should have been energizing, but it just felt off, disconnected, out of sync. I stood in front of them with my slides ready, my story rehearsed, but in my heart, I was tired, not physically, existentially. And for the first time, I told them that. I didn't perform, I didn't inspire, I just shared. I told them I wasn't sure what came next. I admitted I'd been leading on autopilot. And you know what happened? I mean, really what happened? No one judged me. They leaned in because of my honesty. It gave them permission to stop pretending too. That moment changed the trajectory of how I lead. It wasn't a breakdown. It was a reunion. Me with my whole self. So let's pause here for the leaders in high stakes transition. You've got teams depending on you. You've got boards waiting for your next move. And somewhere in there, you stop checking in on you. So here's what Sonia Dumas taught us.
The destination when it comes to hotels is very simple. You open. You get to opening date. So no one's confused about what the destination is. So we know we had to open, but how do you get to open? Well, there are hundreds of thousands of microtransactions that happen in order to get to open, for everything from construction to purchasing to design to architecture to everything you got to do, sign off with the city. So many micro things that had to be done. And what I found that my team, for what we did with branding and strategy and procurement, is I had to show them, because I was the leader, I knew that there were milestones along the way that also included rest periods. I knew that there were 12 weeks of intense purchasing, branding, designing. But once the PO was released, once the money was paid, guess what? It gets quiet because everything's in production now.
Overwhelm doesn't come from workload. It comes from disconnection. When you can't see the milestones, the whole mountain feels unscalable. But vulnerability, it reveals the path. It helps you say, I'm not okay, and here's what I need. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And Meryl Tingesdall's insight.
In my life, especially recently, especially as an adult, post-retirement out of the military, I've had to amputate a lot of people out of my life who are naysayers and people who cannot think past their own boundaries and try to limit me.
She had to amputate the voices of the naysayers, especially the internal ones. Post-military, she knew her path forward didn't need anyone's approval. So she had to tune out those who couldn't imagine something bigger for her. Don Yeager circled back to this too, reminding us that ego isn't just loud, it's often the mask we wear when we're the most afraid to be seen. But you can't lead people where you haven't let yourself go. Vulnerability isn't just personal, it's professional capacity. Because when the leader models wholeness, the team begins to breathe. Here's this in the resilience action model. The reckoning. Ask yourself, where am I pretending to be okay when I'm not? What emotional truth am I avoiding because I think I should have it all together? In the revision, reframe vulnerability as a strategic strength. Let it guide your decisions, your conversations, your culture. Pause to receive support, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know that you need it. And renewal. Start leading with your whole story. Drop the script, keep the strategy, share the struggle. You'll be shocked how many people say, yeah, me too. So here's my invitation to you. Where do you need to be seen right now? Not as the expert, not as a hero, just as you. Take one step this week to tell the truth, to stop fixing, to ask for help, or to take a pause that you've been postponing. Because when you show up real, you free others to show up too. If this series moved you, don't keep walking alone. Join me and a room full of brilliant leaders at the next Elevate Life Executive Strategy session. We go deeper into these truths. We connect the wisdom to your work, and we build strategy that doesn't burn you out. Reserve your seat now. Just follow the link. So let's pause and take this in. 8 leaders, 8 amputations. Here are the leadership levers they left us with. Manage your ego, but don't mute your voice. Let go of control and trust the mission. Don't confuse progress with betrayal of your past. Stop helping others to avoid healing yourself. Amputate the savior complex. Cut off the voices that can't dream bigger. Be willing to walk away from the perfect path. And remember, humility is not weakness, it's wisdom. Each of these levers isn't just a story, they're signals. The reminders that elevation doesn't happen by adding more to our plates. It happens when we cut away what's weighing us down. This week's micro challenge, ask yourself, what do I need to amputate right now to create room for what's next? And if you want to process that in real time with other executive leaders, join us for the next Elevate Life Executive Strategy session on July the 17th from 5 p.m. to 5:45 Eastern Time, and you'll get clarity, coaching, and a circle of high integrity leaders walking through it with you. Next week, I'm sharing 8 more lessons from leaders who have impacted and inspired us in the first half of the year. Because this is not about balance, it's about alignment. So go forth, inspire your world. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.